So if you have a short attention span like me and hate listening to people go on and on about their life story, I'm going to summarize. Okay, number 1, change of environment. Depending on what skin type you have, oily, dry combination, you're going to want to live in an environment that complements that skin type. 2, monthly facials. For me, this was extraction facials to get rid of all the acne that I had and to exfoliate my skin. And 3, I stopped eating dairy and eggs, except cheese, because I would sooner die than give up cheese. First off, disclaimer. I am in no way, shape, or form a professional or even an expert in dermatology. This is just my own personal experience and what helped me. But I know how frustrating it is to have acne, especially if it's painful like mine was. I didn't really struggle from acne growing up until I turned 20 and I moved to Las Vegas, and I started to struggle with very painful cystic acne around my chin and jaw area. And the thing about cystic acne is that it's buried under your skin, so you can't really see it from the outside. There will be a bump, but it's normally around the same color of your skin. At least it was for me. But the problem was that there was never any opening to, pop it to try and drain it. You would first have to make a small incision with a needle. So basically, I was doing this to myself, which I do not recommend because that is how I got some of my worst scarring. As you can see, it's kind of hard to see on this camera, but there's one here, dark spot down here, and a couple more around here. And unfortunately, at this time, I couldn't afford to go to a dermatologist. That's why I was doing it myself. But again, it's just going to cost you more money in the long run because now I have to pay to fix the scarring. I didn't really start working on myself until I moved to Mexico and healthcare was more affordable. Finally, I started to regularly get facials to deep clean my face at least once a month. Every single place I went to would try to convince me to go more than once a month, but I didn't really think that it would help that much more. And it was so painful to get out the cystic acne that you couldn't pay me to do it more than once a month. In the span of 3 years, I saw multiple different dermatologists and still the acne wasn't going away until I moved away from my family to live in Mexico City alone. So at first I thought it was stress related, and it still very could be, since whenever I visit my family I break out again, but it could also be climate. Before I lived in Vegas, I lived in Arizona, and then I lived in Sonora, Mexico. All these places are very hot and dry all year round. Now I'm living in a much cooler climate and even a little humid from all the rain that it gets. But it only really gets hot between April and June, and even then, if you just stay out of the sun, it still feels cool. Whereas if you've ever lived in a desert, you know the feeling of a warm gust of wind slapping you in the face like you're in hell's inferno. And the only time I want to feel that hot is when I'm in the shower. And you'd be lucky anyways if you could find a piece of shade anywhere in the desert. When I was living there, I would be ducking in and out between air-conditioned buildings, and honestly, I don't know why people decided it would be a good idea to settle down there, but I'm not going to get into that now. Moving on, when I first decided to live in Mexico City full-time, I also started taking Neurotrex, which was medication my ENT doctor prescribed me for my nose since I was about 6 months post-op and my nose was still very swollen. She said since I had very thick, oily skin, this would help with thinning it out a bit, and I googled it, and it's basically Accutane. And since it's so strong, my doctor only had me taking it every third day for about 3 months. And it made my acne worse before it made it better and made my skin very dry to where it was flaking. Then a few months later, I am now permanently living in Mexico City with some roommates, and I am not doing anything much different than before. I am still getting a facial once a month, and I am still eating pretty bad, but I had given up eating eggs and quesadillas, which were my two favorite foods before, but I hadn't craved them since I moved. Eventually, I did start eating cheese again, but I had also switched to drinking deslactated milk after I got my first kidney stone, which is a story for a different day, and I stopped drinking as many sugary drinks because of it. Around this time was when my skin was the clearest. And then a few months later, I moved to an apartment all on my own and started to break out a little. And at first, I blamed it on the stress, but I also noticed this was when I started eating eggs again. Now, to sum it all up again, climate, dairy, and facials were the three major components that helped me clear my skin. Now, this won't work for everyone because everyone has different skin types and different types of acne that they deal with, but this is what helped me, and it may also help you. And now that I have controlled my acne, I can finally start working on the acne scars that I gave myself when I was always picking at my acne. So in the next couple of days, I will be getting a CO2 fractionated laser facial. That's a mouthful. And hopefully with that, it's going to help, level out some of the skin and hopefully with some pigmentation as well. So if you want to see the result and my experience on that, let me know in the comments and I'll try to post a video in the coming weeks.